Yes.
Welcome to the second in the series of interviews that we have launched recently. Today I'm here with Henry Dixon. Good afternoon, Henry.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Maria.
Henry is the departing Vice President of the Luxembourg chapter, and I'm really excited he agreed to this interview. So let's get started with the first question. As I mentioned, you are the departing Vice President of the Luxembourg chapter, and I know that you held a leading role with the chapter before. Can you tell us about your journey with the chapter and how did you get involved, why, and what roles did you hold?
Good. So when I enrolled with the PMP in 2015, I inquired about joining the Luxembourg chapter. And at that time, I was informed that the chapter was not operational, but then I was asked to help revive the chapter structure. So with a small interim board and about 40 members, we kickstarted the chapter activities again, and we started holding events. We reached out to past members and we tried to get exposure in the local press in order to attract members. During the first board elections, I was nominated as Vice President and Secretary, and I held this position until the end of 2016. And then after a break of 2 years, I was again nominated in this particular board role in 2019, and I will complete my term at the end of this year.
Okay, and during the time you have been a chapter member, how has the chapter changed?
So as I mentioned, when we restarted the chapter, we were only about 40 members. We're now over 200 members. I think events are the main draw card for chapter growth, as people enjoy the opportunity to network with other project managers. So as the project, as the chapter matured, we put a better structure in place, and that helped us to have at least one event per month. But on top of events, we managed to facilitate regular mentoring sessions as well as newcomer onboarding sessions. So initially, all the activities had to be managed by the board members, but currently we have more volunteers that are taking on specific projects to help the chapter run more smoothly and deliver value to the members. So quite significant changes over the years that the chapter has been restarted.
Mm. And what has been the most satisfying part of your role as a Vice President, and what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced in this role?
I think one of my most satisfying experience was attending the Leadership Institute meeting, or LIM, of the PMI held in Dublin in 2019. It was really valuable to meet other chapter leaders as well as some PMI board members from the global organization. As far as challenges, I think for many of us this year has probably been the most challenging, mainly because of the COVID-19 restrictions. So I mentioned face-to-face meetings and networking meetings before, and we really cannot underestimate the value of these meetings for the chapter. Although we found that virtual events have proven very successful, especially for webcasts and training, the networking component is lost, and I think that's where our members really derive the most value.
What would you say to someone who considers pursuing a leading role with the chapter? What does it take to be a vice president, and what are the main responsibilities?
I think it's important to understand that being on the board is not just a nice addition to your CV or to your LinkedIn profile. There's a very real commitment required to be present and actively participate in board meetings. So there's a time commitment that's required. I also see the role of the vice president as one of strategic input and support rather than operational execution. However, my role as vice president was combined with that of a secretary. And as a secretary, there is more of an operational component as well. There you're responsible to support the president and lead the board meetings where you're driving the agenda and keeping meeting minutes. And I also decided to take ownership of our internal SharePoint site for document retention, as well as all the tools that the board use to communicate and share information. So to really summarize, the VP role, very much strategic in nature, advisory, in input, and the secretary more operational, but really supporting that and facilitating that communication between the board members.
Okay. From your perspective, what added value does chapter membership bring?
I think the primary benefit of chapter membership is the ability to participate in events like presentations, mentoring programs, and networking opportunities. So meeting people who understand the challenges that project managers experience is very valuable, especially outside of the work environment. So you do not have that pressure of work colleagues, etc. It's a really safe environment. There's a lot of valuable lessons that we can learn from informal interaction after events, and that you can carry back into the workplace to improve your own effectiveness as a project manager. I think I'll say a little bit more when we talk about volunteers on really just the value that membership of the chapter can bring.
Yeah, what, according to your experience as a long-standing volunteer for the chapter, how do you think the chapter can manage to attract more members?
So we really need to understand our member demographic. I think especially in Luxembourg, we have a lot of diversity, different industries, different age groups, and we need to make sure that we address the needs of the different groups. So some members are early in their careers and they really benefit from networking, mentoring, and other learning opportunities. Volunteer opportunities is really an ideal way for members to grow their skills in a very practical way with a supportive and skilled team around them. Of course, for those that have been in their careers for longer, opportunities to contribute through mentoring should be exploited, and there's more and more of those opportunities arising. But I think exposing our members to the range of projects through our events, everything from IT events to finance industry, manufacturing, etc., broadens their understanding of the discipline, and it could open up career opportunities in the future. I really want to encourage any member that would consider a board role in the future to start off with volunteering. It gives them exposure, it allows the chapter members to get to know them, and they also start learning what the chapter is about and what the commitment is required. So any of our members watching this, get into volunteering. It's really rewarding and it's a personal growth, but you're also contributing to the growth of the chapter.
We mentioned pandemic several times already. How has the pandemic changed your life? I mean, now in terms of working life, personal life, volunteering life?
So there was an initial adjustment period, I think, especially during the strict lockdown in March. But I managed to negotiate or navigate this period quite well because I'm, I think, naturally more of an introvert. So it didn't really bother me too much to have an excuse to not attend so many meetings. But most of my projects managed to show progress during this period. I could deliver on schedule, and that was really because my teams in my work projects were able to continue working even though it was from home. I personally prefer to be physically in the office, but I quite enjoyed the flexibility that working from home offered me. I could walk the dogs or go for a run by taking a break midday, and that's something you don't, that's a luxury you don't have when you're sitting in the office all day. I think the main impact of the COVID period has been on the face-to-face aspect of the chapter activities, the events and the networking. So we couldn't have these face-to-face events due to the social distancing rules. And I think for many people, a Zoom fatigue settled in because we found that not as many members participated in the online meetings, although we've had some very successful webcasts which were attended by record number of attendees. So the responses there were quite mixed.
Okay. On a more personal note, and that is my last question for you today, apart from project management, what are you passionate about?
So I've quite a wide interest range, and I don't think I can ever say that I'm bored. Purely from a fitness point of view, I run at least 3 times a week, and I walk my dogs daily, preferably in the forest. I read quite a lot, and I read quite broadly, anything from business books, biography, but fiction as well. And I'm originally from South Africa, and I think the one thing that I miss the most is being close to the sea. So if I have to really identify a passion, it's about being close to the sea, and that's something I really miss living in Luxembourg. But I think to a large extent, the nature that we have around us in the forests have compensated for that to some extent.
Yeah, I miss the sea too. Anyhow, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time, Henry, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Maria.